G'day average riders. Well, it's a shed day today, not a ride day. Just wanted to share with you my latest mod with my 890 Adventure R. The 2023 was revised obviously last year, and they improved a couple of things that I didn't really love about the original 890, 790, and that was the headlight tower being separate from the rest of the main body of the bike. Just kind of looked a little, I get what they were trying to do, make it more dirt bike-ish, but it just kind of looked a little disjointed. And in the 23 model, they integrated the two, and that was one of the styling changes that really motivated me to change and get the bike. However, having said that, there are a couple of things that it was really hard to try and reconcile with. One was the very mechanical nature of the bike and didn't particularly sound engaging. It was fantastic to ride, but it just didn't give you the same sort of emotive experience the way it sounded. So I addressed that with a decat and changed the exhaust over to a wings exhaust, and now it sounds sweet. I also increased the airflow. I put the power parts pre-filter kit in, took out the metal blade that is there to try and take out some of the induction noise, and now it's got plenty of airflow, plenty of induction noise. It's really sweet on performance and sounds naughty, which is exactly what you want for this bike, because it just makes you want to be a hooligan, whether you're on the dirt or on the road. But there was one thing I couldn't really get past, and that was the look of the bike with the headlight. It just, I don't know what KTM are thinking, persisting with Kiska on their design. You know, their dirt bikes look great, but their road bikes just are something else. But anyway, look, you know, each to their own personal taste. I'm sure there are plenty of people that love them, but I loved everything about the bike, but just visually, every time I turn around and have a look at the bike or look back or go into the shed, it just, the grasshopper eyes just really, or praying mantis head really bothered me. So, but there weren't a lot of options, right? There was a lot of the options were for the earlier model 890 that really didn't cater for the integrated panels of the new version. Until recently, just a couple of weeks ago, I just happened to spot Rade Garage. Those guys have had a kit for the previous 890, but they've come out with basically the same sort of tower and screen, but they've actually done a really good job, in my opinion, of integrating that into the current look and shape. So, as expensive as it was to get it from Europe into Australia, and particularly with the freight and then the taxes on top, I dove in and received it last week and put it on the bike, and here it is. So let's have a little look here. Here it is on the bike. Yeah, I really like it. It's not perfect by any stretch, but I think they've done a really good job integrating it into the side panels, and also, you know, raising it up from the fender to give it, I think, a little bit better proportion. You can see, and I think they've really nailed what is probably a tough job to integrate. It doesn't look like a bolt-on. They've done a really good job at designing these side panels between the screen, and they don't just look like a piece of plastic that's sort of stuck in place with some of the other mods and some of the other towers that you see. They've really done a nice job actually trying to build something that looks factory, and it's not just the outside. There's actually an inside. I don't know if you can see it, but there's an inside piece to the kit, so it is, you know, very much almost factory in its style of integration. The actual tower itself, I think, is pretty much the same tower that they've used on a few of their models for the 690. You know, the lights are the same kit that they run in the 690 and probably on on the 450s, 500s. The screen is the same as before. So they've leveraged what they've had. I think they've just changed the bracketing to integrate the brackets to suit this bike. There are some changes, and all in all, I think it's probably one of the best kits out there. I've seen Rebel X, I've seen a ARX, might have been the other one, do kits, but again, they're very much for the previous version. They're not integrated nicely. They do have sort of plastics to join the screen to the side panels, but not like this, I don't think. So yeah, I just think it completes the look. It gives it that rally style. One of the things I think they missed a little bit, and I can understand why they didn't do it from a cost point of view, but you can see that it's quite a narrow screen, which is fine on the skinny bikes, but because you've got these broader shoulders of the bigger twin, you kind of got like a little head on broad shoulders. Bit like I think the Yamaha T7 Rally is a bit like that with the big tank. Kind of got that look. But yeah, look, it's all in all, I've got to say, aesthetically, I think they've nailed it. It's a well made. The carbon fibre tower is 10 out of 10. Like, it is absolutely Schmidt quality. Really, really good. You know, the lights look great. I actually went for the gas colours in black anodised casings and black sticker, rather than the orange for KTM, and then they have like a blue for the Husqvarna. And I think that was a better look for the bike. For me personally, I just think that looks better. Yeah, it was the instructions that they do on the video for Rado Garage quite good, as in the process and the technique that they show you is pretty straightforward. However, I have to say they don't actually show you putting the bolts in place. They show you the bolts you need to use, they show you where they go, but they don't show you the fitting. And I can tell you, it's a challenge to fit. If you've got particularly large hands like mine, it's not easy. A couple of things that I struggled with that I wanted to share with you if anybody's interested in doing this or planning to do this. Things to be aware of. They do use the existing side brackets here underneath that you need to mount the fairing onto, and there is that also has the bracket supporting the tower is mounted into that bracket as well. They are very, very tricky to get into. You need a 1 1/4 extension and universal adapter. If you've got a 3/8 inch or the bigger ones, you're just not going to have enough clearance. You need to get the smaller ones, so get that before you start. They say to move the tank back. To be honest, take the bloody tank off. It will be much easier. It'll stop a lot of swearing and cursing and skin knuckles trying to get your hands in there and trying to get bolts in there without falling through. That was really, really painful, really difficult. If you can be bothered, take the tank off. It'll be much easier than throw the tank back on after. It's actually not that difficult. I've done it before. But if you're patient, you will get there, but it is fiddly. The other thing is the tower itself, the metal tower, the holes for the rubber capture nuts that you put the screws into in the screen and other places, they're a good size. The rubber capture nuts go straight in. The holes in the plastics, however, where you've got 1, 2 here, you've got 1 here, you've got a whole heap under here. Those holes are just a little bit too big, and the rubber capture nuts just fall straight out. So as soon as you put them in the panels, you try and push the panels in place, they just keep falling out. So that is really, while the plastics are good, the fitting elements are not perfect by any stretch when it comes to that. So that is a real problem. The other two things I really struggled with, this section here, you've got underneath here, this deflector, or three things actually. You've got this deflector plastic guard here to stop wind flow coming through the forks and up through the top. This plastic deflector is held in place by this top panel, and then the inside panel behind here that this fits to. That is like a three-piece sandwich that this 2 bolts have to go through. Trying to line those, hold those together lined up, get the rubber capture nut in without it falling out is an exercise of frustration. Eventually I figured out the easiest way, and had I done this from the start, and anybody who does this, if you do this from the start, it's pretty quick and simple. This plate, this deflector and the inside panel, if you just squeeze them together and put these bolts through, which they kind of tell you to put one in, but actually if you put 1, 2 in so that they line perfectly, use a bit of cloth tape to hold them and pin them together effectively, then take the bolts out, put this piece in place, then that'll hold it perfectly for putting the bolts back. And then from a serviceability point of view, because you've got your radiator reservoir that you fill up here, you've still got underneath here, or you probably can't see, but you can still see the level. But if you need to fill that up, you've got to take this panel off. So from a serviceability point of view, having them held in place is going to make it much easier taking the panel off and then getting it back on and keeping the screws. So that was a real pain. But once you deal with it that way, it's okay. You would think hopefully that they'd actually in future have a bolt in place to actually hold those 2 panels in place for part of that serviceability and fitting, to make fitting a little easier. So anyway, that's something, if you plan on doing this, you might want to think about. The other thing that was a bit disappointing was that these brackets here that hold the screen, top of the screen in place, they didn't line up. No matter what I did, when I've had these in place, they just weren't going to fit. So I've had to bend them slightly to line up. And that was pretty disappointing, to be honest. You would think they'd get that bit right. They would have been able to get that bit right. But yeah, certainly it's not seamless like the video shows. It takes time. There's a lot of fiddling, but it will go together. And when it's together, it's all very solid and really good. The silent blocks, as they call them, that the tower fits to, reduces quite a bit of vibration. I run a quad lock and I don't have the vibration dampener for the phone in there. It doesn't really need it. When you're riding along, there's not much vibration to the phone at all. Samsung phone, which I run, don't seem to suffer the same issues that the iPhones do, so it's no big deal. And the tower allows me to run my Garmin GPS and my phone side by side in portrait mode, which I prefer. Yeah, that's certainly one advantage, and that's been quite good. So review. How does it ride on the road? Okay, so how does it ride on the road? Well, took it out today for a highway run, and I have to say it was a bit different. I had mixed feelings at first, and look, as a performance upgrade over the standard screen, it's not really a performance upgrade. It doesn't necessarily provide you with better wind protection. I was quite disappointed. I asked that question before I bought it from the Rado Garage. What was the difference in terms of wind? Is there going to be much buffeting? I'm 6'5", 194 centimeters, so quite tall, and that's a real big concern for me. They said, their test riders have come back and said it's good wind protection, it's better, and so on. Yeah, that's BS. It's not. In actual fact, when you're in traffic on the highway around trucks and things like that, there's quite a bit of buffeting. It's disappointing, to be honest. So it's not great. and I was a little worried at first on the ride out, thinking, oh, this is a bit of a disaster. However, once you get into clean air on the highway, and I'm talking sort of 110, 120 kilometers an hour, sort of that 60, 70 mile an hour range, it's not too bad. It's acceptable. It's not really any better or worse than the stock screen. It depends on how tall you are. I mean, all these things depend on how tall you are, how close to the screen you sit. After about an hour or so of riding, I started to find my happy place where I could, how close I was sitting to the screen, and then just in certain conditions, if I was sat up or leant forward a little bit into the screen, and depends if you've got a peak on your helmet and all the rest of it. So you will have to find that spot that suits you to get the cleanest airflow. Yeah, it's not going to offer you much in the way of air protection, even though it's a taller screen. It's going to depend on your height and your riding position. So yeah, just be warned. Don't expect a big improvement. Certainly don't go for this upgrade if you're looking for better wind protection. It's not going to give you that, but it is acceptable. It is okay in my mind. Performance, it is actually a little bit lighter. It's not, I think you can notice the difference in the steering. It does feel a little bit lighter. Is it going to make a difference? No. But you certainly can feel a little bit of the weight. It's only, I think, about 1 or 2 kilos, probably closer to 2 kilos lighter, the whole setup, and it's quite narrow and all the rest of it. So I think there is a slight gain or benefit from a front end handling point of view, but again, not really enough to do if you're looking for performance, if you're not racing, if it's just for the street. So yeah, for me, aesthetically, it was worth it. It was bloody expensive. It's not a unicorn, this bike, but it's the best adventure bike I've bought, and I've had a few. And the best I've owned. It's fun performance, it's fun on the street, it's fun in the dirt. I really enjoy it, and I really want to keep it. If I want a different riding experience, I'll buy another bike, but keep this one for the type of adventures and off-road riding that I do. Anything super technical, I've got a 500, and that's a sweet bike. I've done another video of an overnight camp and a small adventure setup that I use for that. But yeah, the 890 now, aesthetically, I can get my head around it, and it gives me the visual pleasure, and I get the oral pleasure from it. Although, yeah, forget it. Let's not go there. To match the riding experience that I get, and it's yeah, it's a great bike. I'm really loving it now, and once the pain of the price I spent eases, then yeah, it's just, the bike is sweet, and I look forward to many years of ownership. I know there's a lot of issues raised on forums about 890s and KTMs in general, but I've got to say I've had 4. This bike, I give a fair hammering, but I'm pretty meticulous about cleaning it, checking it, tightening loose bolts, checking things are all in working order. Occasionally there's the odd loose thing to tighten, but that's all. I've had a few tyre issues, but nothing significant. Just break the bead, clean the rim. I mean, you're riding in dirt and crap, so clean the rim, reset the tyre, and it's fine. It's never broken down, never let me down, and provided heaps and heaps of riding pleasure. So yeah, I'm thrilled with it, and yeah, hopefully if you've got one or thinking about getting one, and you want to do something about the appearance of it, then this might be an option for you to consider. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this little video, and see you on the next one.